going on, everybody? It's Richard Koberger here, the Blue Collar Nerd, and the time has come to indulge in some delicious pumpkin spice release notes. Let's jump into it. So first on these notes, under adaptive capacity, view daily capacity insights faster with the new capacity reporting simple mode. So I have my capacity reporting pulled up here. That's under the schedule page and the capacity reporting tab. And of course you are only going to see this if you're using adaptive capacity. So with this update, you'll notice that over here we have this toggle for reporting mode, advanced or simple. So advanced mode is what we're looking at right now, and advanced mode is how it used to always work, like that was the only option. And by the way, if you need help understanding how to use advanced mode, I go over all of that in my dedicated adaptive capacity video, so be sure to check that out. However, we now also have this other view for simple mode. So as the name implies, simple mode is pared down to be more easily digestible at a glance. So right now we are looking at it in the daily view, and we are looking at it by business unit. So right here, this top row is our total. So we have a total for the entire day of Friday, October 3rd, as well as totals for every individual time slot. So for the entire day, we have 92.25 hours open, 22.6 hours open in the 8 to 10 time slot total. You get the idea. And then if we wanted to see individual business units, we could scroll down and then we see that in our HVAC sales, we have 15.75 total open hours in the day. 4 of those open hours being in the 8 to 10 time slot, 2 open hours in the 10 to 12, you get the idea. Okay, now we could also choose to look at this as a weekly view. So now instead of these columns being individual time slots, we're looking at entire days. Okay, I'm gonna switch back to daily here. Now we can also choose to look at scheduled work versus open time. Basically that means, do you want it to show how many hours are open or how many hours are used up already? So right now we're showing how many hours are open, but if I switched over to scheduled work, these numbers are now telling me how many hours are scheduled or how many hours are used up, basically. All right, so you can kind of look at that either way. We can also choose to group this by something other than business unit. For example, if I wanted to see it by job type, I can do that, and then there's my capacity for these individual job types. You'll also notice these little icons here, and if we hover over individual cells, we get those icons as well. We have a legend up here that tells us what those mean. So the little person is labor supply. That's like the total pool of hours within whatever we're looking at. So when I'm looking at the total column under the daily summary, we have a labor supply of 110 hours. That's the total pool of hours. 95.25 of those are open, but the total pool is 110. Then we can see how many hours are scheduled and how many hours were added or subtracted. You can't actually do the manual adding or subtracting of hours from here though. You still do need to do that from the advanced mode. This flyout breaks things down and shows how it's coming to its calculation, which is really helpful if we're trying to troubleshoot our setup. Next, we have the adaptive capacity settings audit trail. So there's now an audit trail to show who changed what and when it comes to adaptive capacity settings. To access that, you're gonna go into the adaptive capacity configuration under your settings. And then at the bottom there, you'll see a button to download the audit trail export. So it is a file that you export. It's not built into the user interface, at least not at this time. I've also been told that this change might take a few weeks to hit even after you've gotten the update. So if you already have the update and you're looking for this and not seeing it, just give it a little bit of time. Next, there's now a day of the week filter in the Get Adaptive Availability menu on the call booking screen. So when a CSR is booking a job using adaptive capacity, if the customer wants a particular day of the week, they can now filter for that. All right, next under Atlas. So if you were at Pantheon this year, you heard the name Atlas a lot. Atlas is the name for the AI assistant that's going to be built in ServiceTitan. So instead of having like a different name for the AI assistant that is used out in the field versus the one that's used on the accounting screen versus the one that helps you with dispatching, it's all just going to be unified under the name Atlas. It's still in its early stages, but you're going to be hearing more and more about it as time goes on. So the feature in ServiceTitan Mobile that was previously called Field Assistant, that is now under the umbrella of Atlas. So technicians can use that out in the field to just talk to it using natural language to get answers about ServiceTitan data. For example, if they're on a particular job, they could ask Atlas, when was the last time a technician was at this location and what did they find? And then Atlas will just provide that answer to them without the tech having to dig through the app. And technicians can also potentially use it for troubleshooting equipment and getting equipment information like spec sheets and installation guides with a particular upgrade that we'll talk about later in this video. Also, the AI support bot that you can talk to from the Help Center, that is also now going to be part of Atlas. Okay, next under dispatching, we have the new Dispatch Activity Center. So somewhat recently in the last few releases, we had an update to the messaging area on the dispatch board. But your regular notifications, like when a technician dispatched and arrived and all of that stuff, that was still under that separate little bell icon in the older looking interface. But now all of your SMS messaging and all of your notifications are combined into one activity center. So that little bell icon is now gone, and that little text message bubble now shows you both your messages and your notifications. Next, under dispatching, schedule multi-day construction crew jobs with the new crew scheduling feature. So crew scheduling is a new gated feature, so not all of you will see it by default. It's mainly aimed at construction companies. To access it from the dispatch board, we're going to come to this drop down where it says daily. We're in the daily view, and one of the options is now crews. Now, when you first launch this, it's going to ask you if you want to auto create crews. And if you say yes, it's going to do that based on who has the lead technician actions permission enabled for them. So in technician permissions, there's a particular permission called lead technician actions. And if we say that, yes, we want to auto create crews, then everybody with that permission enabled is going to have their own crew created for them. So that will essentially create like a shell. It'll be a crew with just the lead, and then you can put other people inside of that crew. Okay, so for my example, I'm gonna say yes, auto create crews. Fingers crossed that somebody has that permission because I'm actually not sure. Okay, I guess they don't, but so that's not gonna work because I need somebody to be the lead and nobody has the permission to be the lead. So let me go fix that real quick. All right, so I've gone ahead and given a couple of technicians that permission. So now I can create a crew. I'll call this one Chris's crew. Now I need to select all of the technicians that are gonna be inside of that crew, including the lead. So I can see here in my drop-down selector, Chris Hunter has the lead permission, so I'm gonna throw him in there, but I'm also gonna add in Adam and Charles. Okay, now I need to select the crew lead, which is gonna be Chris, because he's the one with those permissions. All right, now we've also got this option here to link technicians to the selected crew. Basically that means, do we wanna make this like a permanent crew? Like, do these three guys always work together as a crew? Or do we want to not check that off and then Chris's crew would kind of just be like a floating crew that we could throw people into sort of ad hoc? For my example, I'm gonna say that these three guys are a formal crew, they always work together, and I'm gonna say create. All right, so now I've got my crew in here, I can collapse and expand, and I can see the availability of everybody in that crew at once. By the way, a technician can be a part of multiple crews. So let's say we're gonna make a new crew here. We'll just call this crew 2, and I'll be the lead on this one, but let's also add Adam, who's already in Chris's crew, and then we'll put in Dan as well. Okay, I'm the lead, create. All right, so now we've got our second crew, and you'll see that Adam here has this little note. He's linked to 2 crews, and if we click on it, it says he's in Chris's crew and crew 2. Now, if we click on the crew name itself, that's where we can add new crew members. We can also rename the crew from there or delete it. I'll also point out that from our settings over here on the far right, we do have this option to display weekends or not. So if you have a preference there, you are able to toggle that. Okay, next, the edit skills permission has now been split into 2 more granular permissions. So previously there was just one edit skills permission, which allowed for editing skills broadly. So an employee could edit the skills required for a particular job, but they could also delete skills, create skills. They could edit skills permanently tied to technicians. They could edit skills permanently tied to job types. So that's now been broken out into 2 permissions. Edit skills, which allows employees to add and create skills to assign to technicians and job types. And edit skills on individual jobs, which just lets them edit skills on any individual job without affecting the job type settings, or without doing anything more permanent as it relates to skills. All right, next under Enterprise Hub, push and pull reports and dashboards between Enterprise Hub and single tenants. So previously, if there was a particular report or dashboard that you wanted to push to other tenants, you would have to recreate it in Enterprise Hub first so that you can push it out. But now you can pull a report or dashboard from a particular tenant into Enterprise Hub where you can then push it out to other tenants. So in the roll-up reporting module in Enterprise Hub, there will be an option in the side menu called pulled and pushed. From there, you can pull reports from single tenants into Enterprise Hub, and then from there, you can push those reports or dashboards into other tenants. Next, under Field Mobile App, download ServiceTitan's new Field Mobile App today. So, as I hope you know by now, the old Technician mobile app is being replaced with a new one. I'm not gonna go too heavy into the details of that in this video, 1, because there's just no time to do that in this video, but 2, because I've already filmed and edited a separate video on that topic, which I've released alongside this video, so that's available right now. I'll put one of those little card things linking to it at the end of this video. But the basic information is that a new app is coming. You'll eventually be given a migration date when you'll cut over to it, but you don't have to wait until that migration date to start using it. It's available to everybody right now. Again, be sure to put it on the to-do list to check out that other full video that I made on the Field mobile app that is mandatory viewing that affects everybody. unless you're already fully migrated onto the Field mobile app, in which case you can probably skip it. All right, next under financing, track and manage financing applications in one place with the new application management feature. So basically, if you have a bunch of customer financing applications open, you can manage those all in one spot now. So you'll find this under the accounting screen under financing and application management. And on that page, you'll basically see a report of all of your open financing applications. This is using the 2.0 reporting engine. It works like any other 2.0 report in ServiceTitan. By the way, I should clarify this is only going to work for financing applications that were done through ServiceTitan, meaning done on platform with one of the integrated financing partners. Now on this report, there is an actions column, and if you click into that, you can complete post-application activities that might be required for funding. For example, creating a sales slip. If you need to do something like that, you'll see action required there in the status column of the report. Again, the report itself works like any other 2.0 report in ServiceTitan, so you can click on Edit Report there in the upper right-hand corner to change the columns that are showing in the report. Next, we have some improvements to the Turns Financing Waterfall. So we've talked about this feature in the past. The financing waterfall allows for your customers to apply for first look and second look financing kind of all in one without having to have their credit pulled multiple times. And this update removes even more friction and makes that an even more streamlined experience. So previously, if the customer was declined for the first look financing, the form for the second look financing was already pre-filled for you, but there were still a couple of buttons you had to tap to move the process along. But now that's no longer the case. It's one submission, it goes through, checks with the first look. If that's declined, checks with the second look, and then just tells you this is what you got approved for. All right, next under inventory, we have the purchasing approval workflow. So you'll set this up under settings, purchasing, and configuration. So this feature allows you to create tiers based on PO total or PO subtotal that will determine two things. It determines if somebody is creating a PO of this particular cost tier, will that PO require approval from somebody up the chain? And then you can also choose who is able to do the approving in specific tiers. So here in this example, we have three tiers, $0 up to $499.99, $500 up to a penny under 5,000, and then 5,000 and above. All right, so those are our three tiers of purchase orders. Now we would click this button that says bulk assign approval tiers. And here we're able to set up which tiers of POs get auto-approved and who is able to approve certain tiers based on their role. So for example, our dispatch role here, if somebody who is in the dispatch role creates a purchase order, it is set to always require approval. So if I'm in the dispatch role and I make a purchase order, no matter how inexpensive that purchase order is, it's going to require approval. And then people in this role have no permission to approve other POs. So any PO they create is going to require approval, and they're not able to do any approving themselves. Now for somebody in the accounting role, on the other hand, we currently have this set up where anything up to a tier 2 is going to get auto-approved. So if somebody with the accounting role makes a purchase order for $4,999.99 or less, it's just going to be auto-approved. And anybody in the accounting role is going to be able to go into PO requests and do approving for anything a tier 2 and below, right? And so on and so forth. So basically, if I'm building out a purchase order and the settings are such that it's going to require approval, then instead of saying create here in the upper right-hand corner, it's going to say submit for approval. And when I submit it for approval, it's going to hit this request tab under purchase orders. And then somebody with the permissions to approve POs of this tier would click into it and then click approve in the upper right, which moves it along the chain into the pending status. Next, the units of measure feature is now available with standalone purchasing, even if you're not using full inventory. So previously, unit of measure was exclusive to full inventory, but now you can use it even if you're just using the purchasing module. Basically, this means that you can buy and consume materials using different units of measure. For example, refrigerant, you're going to buy it by the jug, but you're going to spend it by the pound. Without unit of measure, you run into kind of a conundrum there because it's just like one. You buy one of refrigerant and then you use one of refrigerant, but you don't use a whole jug on one job typically. So unit of measure should make those things much easier to track. All right, next under memberships, the recurring service events follow-up screen has been updated. So the recurring service event follow-up screen has now been updated to be more consistent with the rest of ServiceTitan. You now have enhanced sorting and filtering capabilities, so you can filter recurring jobs by business unit or membership status. And you can also multi-select filters and choose which columns to see or hide, and just generally organize the table how you want. Next, under payroll and timesheets, there's now a meal break reminders feature. So this is an optional feature intended to help you stay compliant. It's going to remind technicians when they're due for a break, and then they're able to waive that break if they so choose. And that information is recorded and you can report on it. Now this feature only works with the new Field mobile app, and it only works with flexible timekeeping, not legacy timekeeping. Flexible timekeeping being the newer version of timekeeping. If you have both of those things, then you can enable this feature by going to Settings, People, and Payroll, and you'll see meal break reminders under Time Settings. All right, next under Reporting and Dashboards, we have the only y'all item of this release. But boy, howdy, she's a biggin'. So you are now able to run multi-template reports. And this has been asked for a super long time. So previously, there were just report templates or data sets. And there were certain KPIs held within that data set. And if you needed a particular piece of information that was held in a different data set, well then you were out of luck. You just had to look at a different report for that. But now, during the report creation process, you'll see a button that says Join Templates. Clicking that allows you to choose a second template to pull into the report. Now the templates that you can join isn't completely without limits. There has to be something shared between the two templates in order for things to properly map onto each other. So you can't necessarily combine any template with any other template if they don't have anything in common. Now the details on how to use this is a bit too complex to cover in this video in a way that's going to be satisfactory, but I definitely encourage you to go play around with it, and it's certainly a possibility that I'll make a dedicated video in the future on exactly how to use it. Howdy, y'all. Okay, next under improvements, you can now search for tags within the global search. So previously you couldn't look up tags directly in the search, but now you're able to type in a tag keyword and that will pull up related jobs, locations, or customers. Okay, next under service agreements, you can now set up recurring visits on visit templates. So in the last release, we got the ability to create repeating visits, but you were only able to do that when adding visits directly to the service agreement. But now you can also do it when creating service agreement visit templates. So you do that under Settings, Operations, and Service Agreement Templates, and then under the Visit Templates tab. From there, you'll have a new option to set the visit to repeat. There are also a couple of new options within the recurrence settings now. For example, you can choose to offset the first visit from the agreement start date if you don't want the first visit to be due right away. And you can also limit the total number of visits. Next, you can now attach service agreement visits to jobs from the job booking screen or even after the fact from the job page. So previously, you had to book service agreement jobs either through the follow-up screen or through the service agreement page itself. But now, available visits will be surfaced on the call booking screen when trying to book a job for a customer who has visits on their account, similar to the way that it works for recurring service events for memberships. Also, if a visit doesn't end up getting attached to the job properly for whatever reason, you can attach a visit to the job after the fact, and you can do that from the job page. We've also got some new options when creating service agreement templates. So when setting up a new service agreement template, there are now new options under the default values for things like billing, schedule, payment terms, auto-renew, and start date logic. Next, under Titan Advisor, the Fall 2025 Benchmark Report is coming in November. So the Benchmark Report allows you to see how your business performed last quarter compared to similar businesses like yours. Once it's available, you can download it by going to Titan Advisor and clicking the link underneath your Titan score. All right, next, moving on to the Pro Products section of these notes, we have the new Field Pro. Okay, so earlier in this video, I mentioned that there was a chatbot on the Field mobile app that technicians can talk to, previously called Field Assistant, now called Atlas. So by default, Atlas in the Field mobile app can answer questions related to data held within ServiceTitan. So a technician can ask something like, has this customer ever been offered a UV light before? There's also a few tools and calculators like a duct sizing calculator and a superheat calculator, for example. So that stuff is all included. However, you can also upgrade to Field Pro Standard, and then that will give Atlas in the Field mobile app the ability to do things like troubleshooting with the technician and providing equipment information like spec sheets and installation guides. So Field Pro Standard gives Atlas in the mobile app, previously referred to as Field Assistant, more technical know-how. Now there is also Field Pro Advanced, which gives Atlas in the Field mobile app the technical know-how like we just discussed, but it also encompasses what was previously known as Sales Pro, which is that tool that allows for recording of the conversations between technicians and customers for virtual ride-alongs and AI insights and all of that good stuff. Okay, so the name Sales Pro is being retired, but the product itself still exists. It's just part of Field Pro Advanced. All right, you keeping up with me here? So Field Assistant is now called Atlas, but Atlas encompasses more than just the Field Assistant features. Atlas in the field by default can answer questions about your ServiceTitan data, but if you get Field Pro Standard, it can also do troubleshooting and equipment manuals and install guides and things like that. Also, last year we launched Sales Pro, but we're not calling it Sales Pro anymore, so now the feature set previously known as Sales Pro is being rolled into the new feature called Field Pro Advanced, which gives you the Sales Pro features plus the Field Pro Standard features. What do you mean you're confused? Jokes aside, I know there has been a lot of shifting around with these names and stuff, so hopefully I've done a decent job explaining it to you. Next, under Marketing Pro, you can now launch targeted SMS campaigns with Autopilot in Marketing Pro V2. So Autopilot is that really cool feature that allows you to launch pre-built campaigns with one click. And now Autopilot is available for SMS campaigns as well. Next, under Scheduling Pro, we have automated abandonment follow-up. So now, if somebody puts their information into the booking widget but doesn't follow through and end up fully booking the job, an SMS AI agent is going to check in with that customer 15 minutes later. The AI agent will chat with the customer and attempt to get the job booked. Okay, we're now at the early access section of these notes. This has been a longer release note, so I'm not going to go over everything under early access because, it is stuff that's not out yet. It's in early access. However, there is one early access feature that I do want to go over with you, which is the redesigned dispatch board. So this is actually something you're able to just toggle on yourself by going to Settings, Dispatch Board, and New and Upcoming Features. Once this release is in your account, you'll see a toggle switch for redesigned dispatch board. Once you've toggled that on, give it a few minutes and a few refreshes, and eventually your dispatch board will look like this. The dispatch board is a very core part of the product, so I'm calling this one out specifically because I want to get as many eyes on it as possible while it's still in early access. Because your feedback is really important, and right now when it's in the early access phase is when it's the most malleable. So if you're willing, do me a favor, turn that on, start playing around with it, and start providing feedback. Because at some point in the near future, that's going to be your day-to-day dispatch board. Anyways, that's all I got for today. Be sure to hit like if you like this video and found it valuable. Be sure to subscribe to ServiceTitan's YouTube channel if you haven't done that already. Hit that bell icon so that YouTube notifies you anytime we upload a new video. Also, as promised, I'm going to put a card at the end of this video that links to the Field mobile app video that I made. Make sure you do find some time to watch that one. Super important stuff. Appreciate it. Peace.